lovely bloomers. I am going to talk about today the difference between reaction and response, because I realise that I mention this quite a lot in my videos, and people might not know what I'm actually talking about. So yeah, I'm going to start by explaining the basics of how our brains work. So here is our prefrontal cortex, which is also known as the rational brain. In the centre of our brains is our limbic region, which is the emotional brain. And then in the limbic region lies our amygdala, which is also known as our reptilian brain. When we feel overwhelmed by a certain emotion or a number of emotions, what tends to happen in our brain is there is a flap in our brain which links between the rational brain and the emotional brain. It closes, so we can no longer use our rational brain, and it will then spiral into our reptilian brain, which means that we will then react, which is something we have no control over. So that's what I mean by react, and we'll react in an action which is made to protect us in a life and death situation. So to my knowledge, there are 5 survival modes. You may have heard of some of these, but some of them may be new. So there is the fight mode, where we physically react to protect ourselves. And then there is the flight mode, where we will react by running away. There is the freeze mode, where we may physically freeze, or emotionally we may just completely shut down, and that can also be known as dissociation, where all our emotions just stop, we become apathetic. That's a survival mode. And there is fawn mode, which is basically, it's when we people please. And the last one, which is new to me, is faint mode, where our bodies will just faint. Becoming mindful is a really important thing as an adult. And even as a child, you can teach children how to be mindful. Like, the earlier we learn to be mindful and present, the better. So as a child, I will add that the amygdala becomes fixed by the age of 8. So anything children learn as a survival skill, either by what they've seen the adults do, or that they've learnt to do in order to protect themselves from particularly dangerous situations, will be their subconscious mind as an adult. Most of you will know our subconscious mode is something that we don't acknowledge, we don't have control over, but it's something that over time you can learn to recognise as you go into your own self-development journey, I suppose. And there will be cases of our survival mode which will be helpful. In the cases of when we are just about to die, like life, death situations, the reason we have a reptilian brain is because if we were to be connected to our rational brain, in certain circumstances, our brain would be focusing on trying to figure out the best thing to do in a situation, and just like that, we're dead. So our survival mode is important, but it's also can be outdated because obviously we don't live in the kind of world where we, might be eaten by a dinosaur, for example, anymore. And our brains haven't actually evolved enough to catch up with day-to-day life. So yeah, we need our emotional and irrational brain in order to make decisions. But obviously there comes a point where our rational brain just won't come into play anymore because it's just too much. We become stuck and we lose control. So we can overcome that. So explain response. So our response is how we act in regards to our emotional state when we're still in touch with our rational brain. So say you've just had an argument with someone you care about, you've had a disagreement, and you start to feel angry because, I don't know, you're not being listened to, or you're not being heard or considered. At that point, you'll learn to recognise when you feel angry, like in the start. There might be physical signs, or it might just be something that you just know in yourself. Your heartbeat, for example, might race, or you may become hot, or you may notice a change in your tone. At this point is where we can become mindful and take an action to stop our emotions or the situation from escalating. So it may be, I've just recognised my face is hot, so I'm going to decide to walk away from a situation before it gets worse. Or I'm going to take a moment to take some deep, slow breaths to slow down my heart race. That would be a response. And being able to do that is, especially if you're a reactive person, is difficult. However, it is possible with practice, like anything. So I invite you to become more mindful of your emotions and figure out tools in order to prevent yourself from unnecessarily reacting with your reptilian brain. Yeah, that's it from me. I hope this has been helpful. If there's anything that you haven't understood, please feel free to ask questions. That will be because I have not explained it properly, so that's on me, that's my fault. So yeah, I hope this has been helpful, and I look forward to hearing your ideas and your success stories. Farewell for now.